There's one historical movie scene that comes to mind for me when I think about Sid Meier's Civilization 7, and it's not a flashy arena fight in Gladiator or Mission Control cheering as we safely bring Apollo 13 back home. It's Leo DiCaprio as Howard Hughes in The Aviator, running his hand along an airplane fuselage and insisting that he doesn't want to see any rivets.
She has got to be clean, Odie. Clean.
There's some method to the madness of smoothing out the texture in its design, and at times I can see why Firaxis went in this direction, but while it takes some good swings with combat and diplomacy, and it is still overall a good time to build a civilization from the ground up, I find that this obsessive streamlining is more often than not to the long-awaited 4X successor's detriment. Let me just restate for emphasis right from the jump that I don't hate playing Civ 7. It retains a lot of the series' signature charm and polish. There's an almost indefinable quality of craftsmanship to it that none in the barrage of recent Civ competitors has been able to fully replicate. It's more like this iteration was designed by Apple, trying to be user-friendly by taking away the ability to dig into the guts of its systems or fine-tune your experience, and I'm more of an Android person. The biggest culprit here is the interface, which simply doesn't provide enough of the information I would hope to find in a strategy game of this complexity. Learning to play Civ 7 is downright frustrating. And while I eventually figured out how to live with its woefully inadequate tooltips and barren Civlopedia entries, I never liked it. I constantly found myself hovering over things and left-clicking, right-clicking, holding down Shift, Alt, Control, screw it, scroll lock, anything in the hope that I could bring up more information. But it's just not there.
PC load letter? What the f does that mean?
In one of my first campaigns, I saw this little guy wandering around my territory. Now, I could open up the Civlopedia and type in Kahuna and find out that he's a unique missionary available to the Hawaiian Civ. But bar that, I don't have any information available here on the map about what he is. Is he a military unit? Is he dangerous? What is he doing here? Can I eat him? Likewise, clicking on a city center will bring up a basic info view, and you can click this button to show more information, but not a lot more information. Rarely enough. I know Civ 7 is the first to launch simultaneously on consoles, but information-dense games like Stellaris and Caves of Cud have done absolutely admirably at making their vital details available at the touch of a controller. The absolute worst solution to the problem is just to go, you don't really need to know that, do you? That's exactly what Civ 7 has done, and while not catastrophic, it gets on my nerves constantly.
I swear to God, one of these days, I just kick this piece of shit out the window.
You and me both, man.
This minimalist philosophy even extends to the setup screen, which has a paltry number of options compared to any previous Civ game in the past couple decades. There are 3 world sizes and 6 different map types, but if you want to know what the difference between continents and continents plus is, again, you're out of luck, buddy. Go Google it, maybe. There's no explanation of the different difficulty levels either. And while standard map size does feel fairly large, even on the Archipelago preset, it generated maps where more than half of the world is land, so I was really missing Civ 6 options like World Age, Rainfall, Sea Level, or any of the other neat tweaks I've come to expect. It really feels like Firaxis wanted to give us a very specific, narrow experience with almost no room for customization. But as I said, that narrow experience is not by any means a terrible one. There is something to be said for a lean, mean, streamlined civilization game a la Civ Revolution, and this almost feels more like a successor to that than to Civ 5 and 6. Once I settled into its awkward, one-size-fits-all throne, I was having a pretty good time for most of it. The music and sound design deserve a prominent mention. Christopher Tin only puts out bangers, and Live Gloriously, which features lyrics in ancient Greek taken straight from the Iliad, is no exception. I also enjoyed Gwendolyn Christie's narration.
The shackles of gravity are broken.
And the sound effects for everything from plopping a new district to opening fire with a rifle company are punchy and satisfying. Also, in a first for this series, well-written narrative events pop up to bring a touch of human character to the broad sweep of history, and I particularly liked that there are some impactful ones for specific civs. Having gone from the Shawnee into Mexico, upon unlocking factories, Civ 7 remembered that I used to be Shawnee, and I got the option to keep true to our people's old ways, which reduced the production output of my industries but gave me a bonus to culture. For Persia, I got a miniature quest chain that rewarded me for sending one of my immortals on his own little hero's journey. And the crises that happen at the age transitions, which can be anything from barbarians at the gates to a super plague that wrecks tiles, are varied and exciting. I'm pretty sure I haven't even seen all of them yet. The reimagining of smaller eras as 3 larger, more distinct ages with their own mechanics and victory conditions feels a bit too broad though, particularly the middle one, exploration. This period stretches from basically the end of the Western Roman Empire to the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, and it feels like it's trying to cover way too much to have a coherent identity. And peculiarly, Civ 7 only really covers history up to about 1950. You get planes and tanks, but there are no home computers or helicopters in this tech tree at launch. The final science victory condition is launching the first manned spaceflight, quite a step back from setting up an exoplanet colony. Again, it feels like the conceptual space civilization exists in has been sliced down to the bone for the sake of simplicity, and it leaves us with some awkward edge cases like the Mughal Empire, which was politically irrelevant by about the mid-1700s and completely dead by 1857, being a modern age pick. Even just having 4 ages instead of 3, I think, would have made it much less awkward. Overall, though, I like the idea of changing which historical culture your civ adopts with each age, an idea that Amplitude introduced in Humankind a few years ago, and Firaxis has improved upon by putting semi-realistic restrictions on who you can pick next. I never liked the idea of American tribesmen founding Washington, D.C. in the Stone Age, and Civ switching fixes that while shaking up the gameplay and allowing you to pivot from military to culture to science without ruining your whole run. But it has drawbacks too. Given that Civ 7's otherwise slick-looking animated leaders don't change at all visually through the ages, you end up with some confusing situations, like having Ben Franklin declare war on you and then having to look up what civ he's actually controlling right now. The Normans? Okay. As is tradition, warfare is the most fun way to play. And I love the clever solution of army commanders letting several units ride around on their backs to move around the map, then deploying to actually fight. That's a good compromise between stacks of doom and 1 unit per tile, and having the commanders be the only ones who earn XP cuts down on micromanaging per unit upgrades. The AI still can't present much of a challenge to an experienced player who knows how to exploit the terrain and focus fire priority targets, unless they outnumber you 3 or 4 to 1, but hey, it's Civ, what else is new? Well, for one thing, when you end your turn, all enemy units move at once, and your view will not be taken to the site of a battle when your units are being attacked. So if you're fighting on multiple fronts, or you just happen to be looking somewhere else when you get attacked out of the fog of war, the start of each turn becomes a crime scene investigation to figure out what the heck happened. If the idea here was to make the end turn time faster, the cure is definitely worse than the disease. Back in the plus column, the centering of influence as a base game currency is probably my favorite change from Civ 6 to Civ 7. The highlight is that it can be spent to engage in a tug of war for war support, which penalizes your opponent's happiness and combat ability when you swing it in your favor. It feels way less annoying to get declared on by surprise when the systems recognize that there are diplomatic and tactical consequences for such naked aggression. And I can press a button to make those consequences even worse by denouncing that jerk Isabella. It also effectively forces would-be conquerors to supplement their bloodlust with a good PR team that swings public opinion to your side even when you're clearly the aggressor, which makes the military path more interesting. If conquest isn't your ambition, there is still another instant victory condition for winning the space race, but otherwise, the overall winner is determined by these legacy paths for military, economic, scientific, and cultural achievements, which have different objectives each age and don't penalize you for changing up your strategy in each one. I found that they do, however, encourage generalization over specialization, and I wasn't crazy about having to dabble in everything to avoid falling behind. Some paths are better designed than others. I'm looking at you, culture. Flatly, it's bad. There's no tourism anymore, so it's mostly just about collecting artifacts by racing for a very limited number of dig sites with your explorers, or vomiting out so many wonders that your starting cities end up looking ridiculous, and the wonders themselves don't feel so singular or special. Then the religion-flavored exploration age culture objectives suck even more. I hope you like missionary spam and endless whack-a-mole conversions that you can't defend against. There's a little bit of strategy to it, like the fact that each settlement can now have a rural and an urban faith that need to be converted separately, but otherwise it's just spending production to churn out as many Bible thumpers as you can. I know we all like to make fun of Civ 6's theological combat, but at least it was something, right? It was gameplay. This is a chore. Sure, this whole one step forward, two steps back thing is par for the course when it comes to comparing a brand new Civ to previous ones with years of patches and DLC to refine them. It's not lost on me that people said the same things I'm saying now about the launch of Civ 5, which is still my all-time favorite in the series. So I have an optimistic outlook on Civ 7 despite all my kvetching. And believe me, there's a lot more minor grievances I could list. This video would be 30 minutes long. I do think a lot of what bugs me about it could be fixed without redesigning the entire thing. They could add better tooltips and menus and game setup options in a patch. And naturally, history teaches us a lot of lacking systems can and probably will be fleshed out in expansions. It's not a great game right now, but I believe it could be with time. At least it comes out of the gate looking slick. One of the only hills, or mountains, I will die on is that I really don't like the way mountains look. They kind of remind me of a big pile of rocks, or like a kid's paper mache volcano project they made for science class.
Can I touch it?
I've worked too long and hard on this for you to screw it up now.
But it's got my name on it.
Just stand over there.
They don't have the appearance of a nice, realistic range of snow-capped peaks like the ones I could see out my window here in Colorado. I'm also not really a fan of the new board gamey look for undiscovered territory, even though the reveal effect is nice. Give me clouds or an old-timey map over this shiny nonsense any day. But the units and cities look incredible, if sometimes a bit cluttered. City-states got a big glow-up, both visually and mechanically. They all have unique 3D dioramas with culturally specific clothing and props for dozens of miniature civs that didn't make the cut, which is kind of incredible considering how many there are. And each can grant you a unique tile improvement. The way you compete for them, though, has, again, been streamlined. It's just a race to fill up the suzerain bar first, and you can no longer steal them away from another leader once they're committed. Not that it mattered much in single player, since it seemed like the AI was simply not interested in competing for them the vast majority of the time. There's also some meta progression where you can unlock equipable items for specific leaders, or cosmetics like new profile backgrounds for playing the same leader multiple times and completing specific challenges. It's whatever. I'm not annoyed by its existence, but it could completely disappear and I probably wouldn't notice or care. Before we wrap up here, where the heck is Gandhi? How are you going to release a Civilization game without Gandhi? To be fair, the quirky leader choices are neat. I like that we're branching out from exclusively executive level political figures. But come on, that's like Halo without Master Chief or Mario without Mario. The lack of recognizable faves just comes across to me as we're going to sell them to you individually later, even if the intention was simply to vary things up. If that's the case, why are there two different Napoleons? With Civilization 7, the desire to streamline and simplify this legendary 4X series feels like it has gone a bit too far, particularly when it comes to the interface. It's frustratingly incompetent at providing me with the information I need to play well, or even understand what's going on sometimes. Even so, it does have improved warfare and diplomacy, a bit of added narrative flair, as well as mostly gorgeous graphics and sound, so it can still give me reasons to keep clicking one more turn late into the night. There's good reason to believe that with Firaxis' usual pace of patches and expansions, it can refine its new ideas and become everything it ought to be. And while what's here right now is at least still a fun time, it's also a bigger step backward for the series than we're accustomed to when a new age dawns. For more, check out our reviews of Frostpunk 2 and Tactical Breach Wizards.